One.
Nigga.
Two, I came up here and just lied on my girl. Just because it's fun.
It is fun.
Yo, she don't understand that part. It's fun to just lie on them, but yeah, I lied. I said, my girl was not expecting me to propose in Turks at all.
Joe Budden forced to apologize for comments he said about his significant other? Yeah, that's right. On the last episode of the Joe Budden podcast, I think we went to an interesting place in Joe Budden's world. For example, over the last week, Joe was teasing this trip to Turks and Caicos. Well, members of Joe Budden's community, the Joe Budden TV page, which is the biggest community in the space for Joe Budden, started to wonder if Joe was going to pop the question. And he wasn't the only person. So was Emani, who went on the pod and wondered, yo, is Joe going to propose?
He might have not told nobody, but I think he's going to propose.
Yeah, I think so. For real? I think that's what this trip is for.
I think that.
I think it's happening.
I think that might be why he wanted the kids there.
Well, after all of that conjecture, it seems to have dampened whatever happened at that trip, as when Joe came back from the Turks and Caicos trips, he made statements saying that his girl was expecting to get married.
My girl thought she was getting proposed to for a second.
That's our bad. That's our bad.
Well, she didn't get the question popped, and it seemed like a lot was happening during that trip. I mean, Joe would go on to say that there was an incident that occurred that would dampen any prospect of them getting married. So would his significant other. But I don't know, you guys. Joe would apologize. Well, I don't know if it was an apology. He would walk it back and he would do this admission of, yo, I love when you be on the pod and you get on the pod and you just get the line, but you could lie because line is line. And when you lie, you dying from trying. And if you trying, you dying. But my girl did not expect me to propose. Now, I think what happened is his significant other peeped some of the commentary online coming from people like the community and even me and said, you mother effer, how dare you? You got me looking crazy. You are out of line, sir. Go back on the podcast, make it clear that I had no expectation of marriage because right now it's looking silly. And the storyline right now is unfolding kind of like a love and hip hop reality show. How will this ultimately play out? How will this ultimately go? Because if it doesn't go a certain way and it's on a public platform, it's going to be conjecture for everybody who watches the show, as even though there's some type of expectation culturally that you don't address, you know, the wives. What do you do when the wives are part of the storyline? Let me know in the comments. Because if Joe had made the choice not to mention anything about it, it simply would not be a topic of discussion for the audience. And when Joe came back telling the story the way he did, one could reasonably infer that she was expecting the question because Joe said that she thought she would get proposed to. So it wasn't like someone in the audience made up some crazy narrative. And it also presents an issue for the audience because this podcast toes the line. Sometimes they say things on the pod that are true. You even do the research and it's actually factually true based on external dynamics of what has happened off the show, i.e. Melissa Ford and Ish's tension. They really had tension. That wasn't a narrative. i.e. Flip and Emani almost getting into a fight. They really had tension and they almost fought in that elevator. So when they come back and say this was fake, was it really fake? You know, Flip challenged Joe to a fight. He was suspended right after. He wasn't on a couple shows. And then he comes back the next episode saying, my girl wasn't expecting a proposal. I don't know what I lied about. I don't get it. I bugged out. That wasn't true. And what does this say for Emani? Do you think Emani was talked to like, yo, dog, why you do that? Why did that happen? You bugged out. I don't think it's Emani's fault. I think, hey, it looked like that was going to happen. I thought that was what was going to happen too. When you went on vacation, you bring out everybody. Turks and Caicos isn't cheap, y'all. That isn't Mexico. That isn't Disney World. You thought something special was going to happen. And then on top of that, Joe said something crazy. He said that wasn't a real vacation. I got to go on vacation again. Damn. That joint flopped harder than Joe's second album. Something's going on. And I think the optics is increasingly becoming a concern for everybody involved. Joe can't even joke about it on the pod. And I'm telling y'all, watch this right now. Let's see how Joe treats this moving forward. Let's see if Joe mentions it anymore. Because he might not. He might see the blowback. He might be like, damn, this got real for me in a real way. I gotta chill with my shorty doo-wop, as he would say. My significant other is really not feeling the vibes right now. I gotta stop. I gotta watch it. And should the storyline take precedent? Because the expectation, I would think, if you're with somebody who has a famous podcast that engages in narratives, you should expect that level of treatment. Anything's a storyline. Anything COE. And I know we love to talk about the on-camera dynamics, but oh boy, if Joe's able, it's kind of diabolical if you ask me, but if Joe's able to actually create a storyline out of his relationship with a significant other this time, and he's able to solely monetize off of it, oh my God, the amount of money that could be made. And I know a lot of you are saying, oh, that would be wrong, Danny. But Joe has been here before. Other people have monetized his relationship and his chaotic love dalliances. Mona, VH1. So if he's able to do it this time and not only combine the dynamics with the podcast, but also utilize his second IP, Podwives. Jesus Christ, it's getting crazy out there. Imagine Joe's able to turn his relationships into an IP that could outdo his own podcast. Now, that would be clout chasey. That would be a little wild, but all of us would tune in. But let me know what you think about Joe Budden walking it back. Let me know what you think about, should the audience not touch this subject, even though the subject is being broached on a podcast that Joe claims to have 3 million people listen to it? Should the 3 million people all subscribe to, I guess, the culture logic that women shouldn't be talked about? But remember, that logic stems from the days before content creation and when people made their life content. So I think that's a bit outdated. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon, The Stop. I have content with a lot of folks there. I have a Heineken interview. I have a Poetic Flacco interview. And I also have a bunch of content from Spaces. Things like Mark Lamont joining, Emani joining, Joe joining. It's a real look at the backroom dealings of the podcast. And I think you'll understand the JPP more if you tap in. All right, y'all, this is Danny from The Stop. Peace.